Okay, so just before we begin today, just one announcement is that this week in the U.S. we go on daylight savings time. So people, the classes will be the same in the U.S. as they always have been at 6 o'clock Pacific time. But for people in other countries who are not going on daylight savings time, the class will be an hour earlier than it is right now. So if you have questions about it, just look up what 6 o'clock Pacific time is your time, and that'll be when the class starts. Okay? So that's for both Thursday and Friday evening classes. Okay, let's start with our...
I don't know if it's on or not. I do not know if it's on or not.
Okay. Let's start with our motivation. So as we can see with the example of the telephone, being cooperative is very important. And it is we may think of it as just a small quality, but actually it's an expression of our compassion and our care for other living beings. So digging in our heels, thinking, I'm going to win this, or I'm right no matter what, we can see that that's very clearly an expression of the self-centered thought that makes us miserable, that causes disturbances to others, that creates more obscuration on our mind, makes it more difficult to generate bodhicitta and realize emptiness. So let's realize that for our own benefit, cooperation is something that really helps us, that we should pay attention to in our lives. And with a kind heart, try and reach mutually satisfying agreements and cooperate with others. And so bodhicitta is the ultimate in cooperation. Actually, it's even more than cooperation, because the bodhisattvas want to lead all sentient beings to full awakening. But sentient beings don't always cooperate. So bodhisattvas have to really have strong fortitude and determination to do what's good for others, even if others don't think that it's good for them, or if others don't feel like doing it. Okay, so with this kind of altruistic intention towards all beings, and the wish to attain full awakening, then let's listen to the teachings this evening. So I think it's important to realize that cooperation does not necessarily mean giving in. Yeah, we may think our thing is, oh, okay, the only alternative to, if I'm not going to push and get my way and stomp on everybody, then the only other thing to do is completely give in and capitulate. So that's more of our extremist views. Cooperation doesn't mean capitulate, it means cooperate. Yeah, it means we dialogue, we discuss, we try and come up with something that is mutually satisfactory. Okay, so that's important to remember. Okay, so there was a question from last week that I'll start with and then go on to this week. So, let's. First question is when
If
speaking.
you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need
Okay.
help,
You didn't press *7.
That wasn't your music.
Okay. Oh.
I told you I didn't know whether it was on or not. Apparently it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Okay.
Excuse me, they're saying that they're really having a hard time hearing, it's very faint, so I don't know if
The,
that mic, if your lapel mic,
they're
they're having trouble hearing online.
having trouble hearing online. Well, I don't know. It's on, that's on. That's plugged in. This is in the space where it usually is. Yeah. It's pointing up. How's this? Omani Pemihong? Can people hear? Do we need to turn that?
Yeah, it's okay now.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so the question was, when speaking of the four Buddha bodies, we said body is a collection of qualities, but this person is saying the nature truth body isn't a collection, is it? Is it a collection or not? The natural purity and the cessation.
Sounds like a collection to me.
Sounds like a collection, doesn't it? So it's not a collection of conventional truths. It's a collection.
of emptinesses?
Yes, exactly. Collection of emptinesses. Okay, then in the distinction between Buddha and Arya Buddha, could we use omniscient mind as a synonym for Buddha? So first of all, what's the definition of Buddha?
Collection of merit and wisdom.
The ultimate qualities.
Abandon all that's abandoned and
Yeah. Okay, it's the ultimate quality, yeah, that has arisen from its causes, which are the fulfilling the collection of merit and fulfilling the collection of wisdom. Okay, so is everything that is an ultimate, and what are some examples of Buddha?
Ultimate wisdom.
Buddha.
Yeah, what else?
The marks.
Hmm?
The marks, the signs.
The signs and marks,
27 enlightened activities.
the 27 enlightened activities,
Ultimate compassion.
ultimate compassion,
The four Buddha bodies.
yeah, the four Buddha bodies, and bodhicitta, the bodhicitta in the mind stream of a Buddha. Okay, are all of those things omniscient mind?
Yes.
Is the nature truth body omniscient mind?
It's the wisdom truth body that's the impermanent phenomena.
Yeah. Is the nature truth body omniscient mind?
It's a permanent phenomena.
What's the nature truth body?
The emptiness of that mind.
Is that a mind? The emptiness of the mind is the emptiness of a mind, omniscient mind?
No.
Oh,
No.
that's the conventional truth. Conventionally.
Permanent.
it's permanent.
Yeah, it's the
Where everybody's saying all sorts of different things. I don't know who's talking about what.
It's the lack of that,
Okay.
you know,
It is the nature truth body mind.
No, it's the emptiness of the mind.
It's the emptiness of mind. So is the nature truth body omniscient mind?
No. No, but where there's an omniscient mind, there's an emptiness of the omniscient mind.
That's true. That's true, but that doesn't mean that it is. The fact that two things are inseparable doesn't mean that one is the other. Yeah? Is the emptiness of the thermos the thermos? No. Can you drink out of the emptiness of a thermos?
No.
Can you drink out of a thermos? Okay. What about the 32 signs? Are they omniscient mind?
No,
No.
not consciousness.
They're not consciousness.
And what is a synonym for Buddha?
What?
What I'm trying to figure out is, what is that? What is a synonym for Buddha, small b, that's not a person?
Well, the definition was the ultimate quality that arises from
Collection.
the two causes, the fulfillment of the two collections. So anything that is an ultimate quality,
Is this synonym?
yeah. So that doesn't, so anything that is an ultimate quality, so that includes the four Buddha bodies. Yeah. Is the enjoyment body mind? No, why not? Why isn't it mind?
It's a non-associated composite. It's a non-associated composite.
Yeah, it's an abstract composite. Why is it an abstract composite?
It's not form and it's both. It has to be both.
No, I'm
What?
confused.
It's a form body.
Does form body mean that it's form? Is the enjoyment body form?
No.
Is it consciousness?
No.
Is it permanent?
No.
Is it an abstract phenomena?
Yes.
Why is it an abstract phenomena?
Because it's not form or consciousness, the only one thing.
But which abstract phenomena is it?
Person.
It's a person. Okay? So there's many abstract phenomena. So remember, the enjoyment body and the emanation body are persons. They are Arya Buddhas. Are persons mind?
No.
No.
They have one.
They have mind, but are they mind? No. Okay. We have to go back to the first debate in Dura. Is the white horse white? Is the white horse white?
No,
Why not?
because white is the color of the horse.
The white horse is the color white.
Yeah, but why isn't the white horse white?
Because a horse is not a color.
Yeah, a horse. What is a horse?
A person.
A person. What is white? A color. So is the white horse white?
No.
No. So is the enjoyment body mind? Is the enjoyment body a form? No. Okay, you got it?
I got that. I still don't get what Buddha is.
Think about the definition a little bit,
All right.
okay?
Yeah.
Enjoyment body is not form. It's one of the form bodies.
But form body, yeah, doesn't mean physical form. Form body means it's an emanation in a form. So, you know, the form body has form, but it isn't form. You have shoes. Are you shoes? No. Okay. So have and are different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, where does that definition come from, Buddha?
It's the one Cancer Champa gave. I assume it would come from Ornament of Clear Realizations. Yeah,
That's what you said.
that's what I said before. Yeah.
Does that definition say Buddha is an ultimate or the ultimate quality? An ultimate.
An ultimate quality. In Tibetan language, they don't have the words "an" and "the," so sometimes it's difficult to figure out what exactly they're meaning. Okay, so then does it take, when we take refuge until we are enlightened, does it matter whether we're thinking of Buddha or Arya Buddha? What do you think? Which one are you taking refuge in, Buddha or Arya Buddha? Or doesn't it matter? What? Buddha. Why Buddha? Buddha's not a person. Arya Buddha's the person.
This is all the ultimate qualities that we aspire.
Which one is more pervasive, Buddha or Arya Buddha?
Buddha.
Buddha.
Buddha, doesn't it?
Buddha.
Huh?
Does Buddha include Arya
No,
Buddha?
it's the other way
Yes.
around. It's Arya Buddha.
No.
Oh.
Because Buddha includes the 4 Buddha bodies. Okay? Arya Buddha is referring to the 2 form bodies, or includes the 2 form bodies. So it's much narrower than Buddha. So which one do you think that you're trying to attain? Buddha. Because are you trying to just, attain the enjoyment body and the emanation body and not the nature truth body or the wisdom truth body? No.
But when we do like a daily practice, for example, and we're visualizing different, this is how it came up for me. Like, so sometimes in my mind, in fact I would say generally it is Buddha, but sometimes in my mind it really is the deity of the practice that I'm doing right that minute. That's where my refuge seems to go.
Right. But if you're doing a deity practice, you have to think, is the deity just that figure?
Right.
Or when you're saying, the deity, are you actually referring to all 4 kayas?
Yeah. Big picture, yes. But sometimes not.
Yeah. Yeah. Because actually, when you look at the deity is usually the Sambhogakaya form. But if you just take refuge in the Sambhogakaya, that's very narrow.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also, and then I also was going off on, so if that's the symbol, so, Tara is just just an appearance that brings to mind enlightened activity of Buddha, that's one thing. If I get hung up on Tara, a person, that's another problem.
Right. Right. And that's one of the problems, is we see the deities as inherently existent people,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're not. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, that's helpful.
Okay. Okay. So we're oh, now come on. Either it moves when I don't tell it to move, or it doesn't move when I tell it to move. Okay, so we're in verse 112 and 113, which I started last week. And there's a lot, 212 and 213. And there's a lot of supplementary kind of explanation in here. So the verses read, in brief, King, the Buddha's form body arises from the collection of merit, and their truth body is born from their collection of wisdom. That means chiefly, it doesn't mean only. Okay? Because unless you have both collections unified, you can't achieve either the form body or the truth body. Thus, these 2 collections cause the attainment of Buddhahood. Hence, in short, always devote yourself to merit and wisdom. Okay, so in here, in the commentary that Khyentse Jampa Chekchek he's referring to Gyaltsab Je's commentary. So Gyaltsab Je gave this syllogism at this point, which says, the subjects, the person and aggregates, do not exist inherently because they're dependent arisings. So last week we talked about the different parts of the syllogism. The subject is, what it's about, which is persons and aggregates. The predicate is not inherently existent. Yeah. The reason is because of being a dependent arising. And the thesis that you're trying to prove is that the person and the aggregates are not inherently existent. Now, why did he say that this is a syllogism for people who have already realized emptiness?
There's 2 subjects. Because it has two subjects.
It has two subjects, and what's wrong with having two subjects?
Because you have to have realized emptiness to get this.
Well, one is emptiness
One
of
is the
person,
person, and one is
emptiness of
phenomenon.
phenomena.
Okay, one is emptiness of person, one's emptiness of phenomena. What's the problem with having both a person and phenomena as the subject?
It's easier to realize the emptiness of a person because you can already see that it's imputed.
Right.
The elementary level, that's what you learn.
Right, so we start out meditating on the selflessness of person because it's easier to understand, because we can already tell that the person is imputed in the sense of you don't see a person directly, you have to see something else first to know a person is there. Okay?
So they say.
Hmm? So they say, right. So, yeah, so that is only for somebody who's realized emptiness, who already has realized both the selflessness of persons and selflessness of phenomena. Okay, then to be a correct syllogism, it needs 3 criteria. What are they?
Property of the subject.
Hmm?
The property of the subject.
Okay, so the subject has to, the reason has to be the property of the subject. So in this case, what would it be?
Person and the aggregates are dependent risings.
Yeah, the person and the aggregates are dependent rising. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, then the second criteria? Pervasion, which in this one is?
Whatever is independent arising is not inherently existent.
Yeah, if it's the reason, then it has to be the predicate. So if it's dependent arising, it must be empty of inherent existence. And then the third one? Counter pervasion. So what's that one?
If it is inherent existence, it's not dependently arising.
Yeah, so if it's not inherently existent, it's not dependent arising. Okay, so what Khenze Rinpoche goes into here is that both of the collections, as well as the two truths, you know, as well as method and wisdom, are contained in this syllogism. Okay, so dependent arising is the reason, and to fulfill the first criterion, that it's a property of the subject, we must really understand dependent arising very deeply, okay? And dependent arising is a huge thing to try and understand, okay? Because remember the different kinds of dependence. We depend on causal dependence, mutual dependence, dependent designation. So it includes all of those kinds of things, okay? And so in general, we can say it includes everything on the method side of the practice, yeah, and it includes the collection of merit, and it includes, you know, 5 of the 6 perfections. And so dependent arising is huge, you know, it includes all of that, okay? So when we think about the reason of the syllogism, there's a lot to think about there. What is dependent arising? What does it really mean? Okay. Then the thesis, that is what we're trying to realize, okay, that the person, the aggregates are empty. Okay, so emptiness is talking about the ultimate truth and talking about the collection of wisdom. Okay, so it's also a huge, vast topic because, you know, every phenomena that exists is empty, so also very enormous, okay? So he says the syllogism is very comprehensive because the reason and the predicate together contain conventional and ultimate truths, which are the basis, the collections of merit and wisdom, or method and wisdom, which are the path, and the truth body and form bodies of the Buddha. So we've already talked about those three sets of two and how they correspond. But let's look at them in terms of dependent arising and wisdom. Okay, so of the dependent arising and emptiness. So of the two truths, what's dependent arising and what's emptiness?
Conventional truth is dependent arising, and the ultimate truth is emptiness.
Yeah, okay, so the ultimate truth is emptiness, conventional truths are dependent arising. Okay, collection of merit and collection of wisdom.
Dependent arising
Merit
is
is-
the merit, and emptiness is the wisdom.
Okay, so collection of merit is the dependent arising. Collection of wisdom refers to emptiness. Okay, well, it doesn't actually refer to emptiness.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, because it's referring to the wisdom that realizes emptiness. Yeah. Is that wisdom a conventional truth or an ultimate truth? It's a conventional truth, but it's called a concordant ultimate. It isn't an ultimate truth, but it's called a concordant ultimate because the wisdom realizing emptiness,
Concordant ultimate truth, or just a concordant
a concordant ultimate.
ultimate?
Yeah, I don't think you'd call it an ultimate truth. Okay. Yeah, so the object realized by that wisdom is an ultimate truth, but the wisdom realizing emptiness is a concordant ultimate. It's not an ultimate truth because it's a conventional truth. It's impermanent. It's impermanent, but it's also eternal. Okay, but it's called a concordant ultimate because it's in accord with the ultimate. What about the four Buddha bodies? How do they fit in with dependent arising and emptiness?
Well, the wisdom truth body is a dependent arising.
Mm-hmm.
The form bodies are dependent arising.
Mm-hmm.
And the nature truth body is an ultimate truth.
Yeah. So nature truth body is an ultimate truth. The other three are conventional truths. Okay. We're getting somewhere. Okay. So there's a lot to think about here. Yeah, and to understand. Okay. So, and especially what is tricky in this syllogism, it sounds so simple, It might not be too difficult to realize that the person and the aggregates are dependent arising, because it's kind of easy to see that they come about due to causes and conditions. At least intellectually we can see that. We may not feel that in our hearts. In our hearts we don't feel like we exist as a phenomena that's caused. We feel like we're just here, We don't exist because the causes of us exist. We exist because that's it. We exist. We don't need a reason for existing. Okay. But, still intellectually we can realize that we're a dependent arising. Yeah, that's not too hard. So realizing that the reason, is a property of the subject, that isn't difficult in this syllogism. Now, what about realizing if it's a dependent arising, it's empty?
Yeah, right.
That was harder, isn't it?
Seems like you have to have for this thing, you'd have to have that first level of understanding that comes through understanding dependent on causes.
Yeah,
You have to be at that level where dependence on causes is leading you into emptiness for this to work.
exactly.
Because you could know something is a dependent arising like at a certain level, but you don't have it at that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the causal dependence is the first kind of dependence that we rely on when we use the syllogism to prove that something's empty, is we use causal dependence, because that's much easier to realize than mutual dependence or dependent designation. Okay. Now, of the 4 tenet schools, which tenet schools agree that if it's a dependent arising, it's empty of inherent existence? Who agree with who agree? Which of the 4 tenet systems agrees with the pervasion that if it's a dependent arising, it must be empty? Do all the schools believe that?
Well, the first
No.
one, for sure.
Yeah, for sure the first 2 don't.
And the
Okay.
first,
What about the Chittamadrans?
no.
No, they also don't. What about the Svatantrika Madhyamakas?
They're still in there with some true existence.
They don't, they have parts, dependence on parts, but they don't have the third kind of dependence.
Exactly.
So I don't know
Yeah.
if you get that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they without realizing dependent, without at least intellectually going along with dependent designation, you can't realize emptiness. Okay, so it's only the prasangikas. And in Jay Rinpoche's Praise to Dependent Arising, one thing that he constantly points out is that the lower schools, whereas what he points out is that the prasangikas use dependent arising as the reason to prove emptiness, and all the other schools use dependent arising as the reason to prove inherent existence. Yeah. So that's why he says that all those schools, like they've got it completely upside down. What should be a reason to prove one thing, they're using as a reason to prove the exact opposite. So that really, you know, when you think about it, that's really striking, isn't it? Yeah, that you could be so close and have so much understanding, you know, of the Buddha Dharma, and still have something completely upside down like that, so that you can't realize the ultimate truth. Yeah. Okay. So, initially we have to understand the 2 truths and to realize that they aren't contradictory. Why aren't they contradictory?
Because they come to the same point.
Okay, they come to the same point. What does that mean?
Means it proves if it's empty, it must be dependent arising. If it's dependent arising, it must be empty.
Yeah, that if it's one.
Necessarily.
Yeah, if it's dependent arising, is it emptiness? It's empty. Is it emptiness? No. Okay, that's important. Okay.
Is that because, could you explain why that doesn't work? Could you explain why you can't say it's emptiness?
Because that would be saying the tissue is emptiness.
Right. You couldn't blow your nose with it then.
Right. Because you can't blow your nose with emptiness.
Quality would be they're one entity, but.
They're one entity, but remember, one entity doesn't mean one is the other.
Right.
Yeah, this is this thing about, you know, one entity but different isolates, or one entity but nominally different. They're very close, but they're not the same thing. Yeah. It's like in Tantra, when you say the extremely subtle body and extremely subtle mind are one nature. Is the extremely subtle body the extremely subtle mind? No. Yeah, they occur together. They're inseparable. Okay, but it doesn't mean one is the other. Okay. Of course, when you're realizing emptiness, you can't realize the difference in the emptiness of the two. Okay. So that it's in that light, for example, that we say samsara and nirvana are the same. It means the emptiness of samsara and the emptiness of nirvana are both emptinesses. But it doesn't mean samsara is nirvana. Okay. Okay. And so, yeah, so Nagarjuna expressed this in, you look like you have a question.
I do. I don't see yet, I understand from the studying I've been doing that in the syllogism, the sign, the reason is something that you know directly. And that's why you can use it.
Mm.
But I don't see how you,
You don't necessarily have to know the reason with direct perception. You have to understand the reason.
or maybe with valid cognition you have to know it.
Well, yeah, you have to have some kind of valid cognition of it.
At least the way it was explained, it seemed like, the example they give is there's smoke on the pass, so you know there's fire.
Yeah,
And the thing that you see, that you actually know, let's use that word, that you know there's smoke there.
right.
So
Yeah.
here, when you say you know it's dependent arising, well, the farmer knows things are dependent arising too.
Yeah,
So
but does the farmer know that if it's dependent arising, it's empty?
So they have to, at some point, have put together smoke and fire.
Yeah,
And so what they talk about then in this explanation was that you just, you keep having more and more reasonings, and at some point you land on one that you actually do know.
Yeah. yeah.
It's
That-
a sign you know, and then you can build everything off of that.
Right.
What I can't see is like how you get to that place.
Yeah.
You're not nearly, with this one syllogism, you're not even close.
Yeah, so,
This is the final syllogism.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing,
Then it got kind of close.
you know,
It's like,
because
things fell away.
sometimes the way they present the syllogisms, it's as if, well, you just present a syllogism and any idiot should understand it's correct. No, they present a syllogism, and if who you're presenting the syllogism to, either your debate opponent or more likely yourself, you know what you're really thinking. You know, if they don't understand the syllogism, then you need to use a lot of other syllogisms to get them to the point where they understand this one. Yeah, and eventually it has to come back to some kind of valid knowledge, something that we know. Yeah, it has to be rooted in experience in some way.
So it seems like the more we keep looking at causal dependence, at some point it will dawn, the significance of it will dawn a little deeper.
Yeah, that's what they say. You know, that if you, but you can see if you just, you know, they always present it when we do all our refutations. It's like taking a gardening class. You know, the seed and the sprout, and you feel like you're gardening all day. But the real thing is to take that and apply it to, let's say, the 12 links. Yeah. Or apply it to your composition as a person, or apply it to something else that really shakes you up. Yeah, and then you can begin to understand it on a deeper level. Yeah, but it takes time to really get these things. But they say eventually, like with causal dependence, that with these different levels of dependence, that as you understand the easier levels, the more superficial levels, like causal dependence, then eventually it will lead you to understanding mutual dependence, which will eventually lead you to understanding dependent designation. or if you go the other way of the three, the causal dependence leads you to realize dependence on parts, which leads you to realize the dependent designation, dependent on terms and concepts. Okay? But it takes time and a lot of contemplation.
So for getting to something in the reason that you understand, part of that has got to be the definition of inherent existence. And if inherent existence is defined as something that's independent, then there's not a big jump for saying if something's dependent, it can't be independent. It's
Right.
a matter of understanding those three kinds
Yeah,
of dependency.
it sounds very easy, you know. Dependent and independent are mutually contradictory. Inherent existence means independent existence. So if it's dependent, it can't be inherently existent. What's for dinner? It sounds easy, yeah. But to really understand what that means is not easy.
Well, I know that we don't see things as dependent is part of the problem,
Yeah,
even though we might intellectually know something is dependent.
yeah. Very much.
I mean, we have the word independent in our language, which is defined as people who can do things on their own and in countries that don't have to depend. I mean, the whole word is used as something as a non-existent. I mean, there's no such way to be an independent person or a country in this world, but we use it as something that's doable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Independent country. Okay, so here it's good to really think about these two verses from Nagarjuna's Karikas, the two famous verses which Geshe Damdol asked us to memorize a few years ago. Okay, chapter 24, 18, and 19. That which is dependent arising is explained to be emptiness. That being a dependent arising is itself the middle way. And there does not exist anything that is not dependently arisen. Therefore, there does not exist anything that is not empty. So it sounds easy. It's all in 4 lines, you know, kind of 8 lines. But boy, if you could realize what that means.
Which text is this
It's
in?
in our blue prayer
In the
book.
blue prayer book, where some of
Yeah, it's from the Karika. Yeah, it's, yeah. Okay. So, someone who lacks an integrated understanding of the true truths, in other words, how they fit together, yeah, and is unable to posit that they're mutually supportive, that they're one nature but nominally different isolates, that person will have difficulty practicing method and wisdom in a unified manner on the path. Why? Someone who lacks an integrated understanding of the two truths and is unable to posit that they're mutually supportive will have difficulty practicing method and wisdom in a unified manner on the path. Why?
They'll go nihilistic. They'll drop karma.
Yeah, you mean that they'll think that emptiness means total non-existence? Yeah, that's surely one way, yeah. They'll think they can't put emptiness, the two truths together.
So why would you need method then when you've dropped everything?
Yeah, so
Lose
then,
method.
yeah, so then you would just hold on to empty, ultimate truths and then drop conventional truths and say that they don't exist, which would mean karma and its effects didn't exist. Or you would assert conventional truths and drop emptiness, and where does that lead you?
See, into hopelessness. Sentient beings are suffering's permanent. sentient being, suffering is permanent, everything's can't be dealt with. I mean, it goes into
Yeah,
despair.
right. Then everything, you fall into absolutism. Yeah. Because if you drop ultimate truths, then that means that whatever you're perceiving with your sense consciousnesses,
Exists as it appears.
that's how things exist. That's their ultimate way of being.
So let's go party.
Yeah, so let's go party. Yeah, with that,
Nothing else to do.
right. Okay. So practicing method and wisdom in an integrated manner. You know, the thing, integrated. What is integrated manner? How do you practice so that method supports wisdom and wisdom supports method? How do you do that in your practice? What does that mean?
That means that when you are doing, for example, practicing generosity, that you maintain the awareness that the agent, the object, and the action are empty.
Okay, so when you're doing any action, let's say generosity or developing fortitude with that jerk who cut you off on the highway, that you're thinking the agent, the object, the action are all empty. Okay, what else does it mean?
When you're meditating on wisdom, you're doing it with a bodhicitta attitude.
Right, when you're meditating on wisdom, it's motivated by bodhicitta. Okay, so when you're meditating on wisdom, when you have direct realization of, and also conceptual realization of emptiness, yeah, your bodhicitta is not manifest, but it's supporting your mind, that the wisdom mind, because you generate bodhicitta before you go into that meditation. They have a huge debate between Sonam Drakpa, Panchen Sonam Drakpa, and Jetsumpa about this. Did you
What's the debate?
hear about this debate? Do bodhisattvas have bodhicitta? Yeah?
When they're in meditative equipoise.
Yeah, when they're in meditative equipoise, do they have bodhicitta? And I think what it is, if I remember correctly, because it's a thing with language. So if Panchen Sonam Drakpa says they don't have bodhicitta, because to have a mind means that mind has to be manifest, and bodhicitta isn't manifest when you're in direct realization of emptiness. But then that's saying that the bodhisattva doesn't have bodhicitta. That sounds pretty weird.
Geshe Dadu talked about this.
Yeah, and Geshe Zopa loves this one. Yeah, he loves this one, yeah. So, it's,
This was written up in something you had us read this year. It was a footnote. I can't remember what it was.
yeah, it's a big debate. I mean, it comes to the same point, but they go on and on about it. Yeah.
So not being Aryas, where does that leave us, since we really haven't integrated these ideas?
Yeah, we don't have an integrated practice. How do we get an integrated practice?
Faith,
We practice.
Rely on your teacher. Do what Lama Tsongkhapa said.
Yeah.
You
So
rely on
what?
the teacher,
Yeah, rely.
You do purification, you do meritorious things, you rely on the great texts.
And you make sincere requests to the Guru Buddha, yeah, for inspiration. Yeah, you do exactly what Je Rinpoche recommended. Yeah, and he went off and did all of that. Yeah, he took 8 disciples with him. I was able to go to that place in Tibet where he did the retreat. It's quite inspiring.
You have photos?
Hmm?
You have photos from there?
I wonder.
I
don't know.
We have some, one or two.
In the archives of the
Yeah.
In the BTC personal files, we have,
Huh.
we have a couple.
And then
I know where they were.
I also have photographs and some albums of the trip to Tibet. I can't remember because I'm not big on it. Any pictures I have were my friend took because I like to experience rather than photograph. So, okay, let's go on to 2:14. We got to do at least one verse. Okay, so 2:14. You should not be discouraged about accumulating the merit for obtaining awakening, since there are reasons to be reassured set forth by both reasoning and scripture. Okay, so here actually he's going to go into a whole section about of pep talks and why we shouldn't be discouraged. Okay?
It's time.
Okay, so, because we've just been through this whole thing of, all these inconceivable causes to realize these inconceivable results that you have to practice over limitless eons. And, and then it's very easy to think, whoa, this is way too much for me, I can't do this. First of all, it takes too long and I'm in a hurry. Okay. Second of all, it involves some suffering, and I don't want to suffer. I want the easy path. Yeah. Give me the easy path. Okay, so here's his first verse about not being discouraged, okay? Because accumulating the merit for obtaining awakening, you can't be discouraged about accumulating the merit, since there's reasons to be reassured set forth by both reasoning and scripture. Okay, so both reasoning and scripture prove to us why we shouldn't be discouraged. Okay, so so rather than just throw up our hands and say it's impossible, I can't do it, give me some chocolate. That because this kind of discouragement is a form of laziness, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's a big form of laziness. I remember when I first, heard that, like, discouragement is laziness. What? No, it's not laziness. Laziness is just lying around. And then when I heard that keeping yourself being very busy doing all sorts of worldly things, what people call fun, that's lazy, that really blew my mind too. How's that lazy? You're very busy. You don't have any time in your schedule for anything. Yeah. So there's a whole different definition of laziness in Buddhism. Yeah. Okay. And this kind of laziness, then we just don't try, It's like, it's too hard. Why try? Yeah. And it's interesting to think how much in our life, how many times in our life have we not tried or have we not learned something new because we just told ourselves we couldn't do it. Yeah. I mean, this is the reason that I don't know I can't do much with my hands, because I was taught as a child, like if something breaks, I was taught, don't take it apart and try and fix it because you'll only break it more. Yeah, I was taught, call an expert to break it. Yeah, and to fix it. Sorry. I was the expert who broke it. Call an expert to fix it, So if something gets broken, I just freeze. And if somebody, says, well, I'll teach you how to rewire something, I just go, I'm going to get electrocuted. Because this is what I was told as a kid, especially don't touch electrical wires, you'll get electrocuted. Even if they're unplugged, you'll still get electrocuted. So, I look at certain things that I have a block against, just because I was told, it's too hard and don't even try. And so to really think in our life of what we tell our, how our own mind limits us from learning. Yeah. And this is part of the big change I had to go through in starting the Abbey, is I didn't know anything about loans or interest rates or planning and zoning codes or septic systems or insurance or anything. I didn't know anything about any of that. And, Or knapweed. Yeah, knapweed was easy comparatively, But okay, you got to learn. Yeah, but the electrical stuff I still kept sloughing off, But but interesting, look at how we limit ourselves. Okay, so how do reasoning and scripture prove that it's possible to attain awakening? Okay, well, if the whole thing about reasoning is, that the source of our suffering is ignorance. Ignorance is a distorted state of mind, so it can be contradicted when we develop the wisdom that perceives the opposite of what ignorance perceives. And so that wisdom can overpower the ignorance, then the ignorance is gone, the afflictions stop. When the afflictions stop, the karma-causing suffering stops. Now, the tricky things in this, are actually to understand how ignorance is the root of samsara. That's the tricky part in the whole thing, I think. To really understand what is grasping at true existence and how does that cause afflictions. Because, that afflictions cause karma, that's not too difficult, That karma, for some people, that karma causes dukkha, that's a sticking point, For some people, that's it. For other people, it's, well, why is, what is ignorance and how does ignorance produce afflictions? Yeah, how does that really work? We say it, but, in my own experience, can I see what ignorance is? Can I see my own ignorance and know how my own ignorance causes my afflictions? Are you aware of how your grasping at true existence causes you to have attachment and anger and jealousy and pride? Are you aware of when grasping at true existence even arises in your mind?
When I'm terrified, like when I remember I had this with the Manjushri retreat in Mexico. I thought there was a snake on that road that we walked on, and I felt it come up so big. It's like, finally, oh, it's you. But it's got to be big.
Yeah. It's hard to tell. And even, you say, oh, well, yeah, that's how my mind's seeing things when I'm angry. But when you're angry, do you see yourself as having a distorted perception? No.
I do. I see when I'm angry, sometimes I can see that it's distorted, but it's not like I'm seeing that it's the root of it. I'm just seeing that this isn't clear.
Yeah.
It's not seeing it as the main ingredient of it.
Yeah. Or we might say, well, anger is distorted because I'm exaggerating the negative qualities of that person. But that doesn't mean we've understood what ignorance is and can recognize it in our own experience.
Anger is going to go away right then.
Right. Yeah.
Or just because we can experience the self-grasping doesn't mean that we understand what ignorance is.
Right. I mean, just because it's your experience doesn't mean you can identify it.
Right.
Yeah. This is the weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we're living this day in and out, and we can't even identify what it is. Yeah. Even we hear teachings. Yeah. And then something happens. How's my mind grasping at true existence here? Yeah. We can't really identify what it is we're grasping at. Okay, but anyway, if we can, then we can understand how realizing emptiness can overcome the ignorance, and which then the affliction cease and the karma producing rebirth cease. Okay?
It's easier with the four distortions.
Pardon?
It's easier with the four distortions.
Yeah, well, they're more superficial.
Yeah, but that's one way, that seems like a door.
Yeah, well, the first one, impermanence, true, yeah. But even the four distortions, you know, that the body is foul. Remember we talked about that also in Precious Garland? You know, people can't realize that. Even we see it with our own eyes. Yeah, even we see it with our eyes. Our mind does not want to say that is foulness. Our mind still wants to say it's beautiful, even though our reaction to the inside of somebody's body is blech. Yeah? I mean, they talk about ignorance. It's pretty deep. Yeah, even something like that.
I don't know if there's any connection, but you know that feeling of vastness, and there's a sense of fear.
Yeah,
Is it that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it needs to be narrow to be comfortable.
Yeah. I have to have something to hang onto.
So this reasoning, I think it's very helpful for being convinced that liberation is possible.
Mm-hmm.
But then Buddhahood is a whole nother story as far as that being a source of explaining how that we can become omniscient and have all these abilities of Buddha.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the way His Holiness has a beautiful way of explaining this. He says the basic nature of the mind is clarity and cognizance. Yeah, meaning that the mind is able, you know, to reflect and be aware of things. Why aren't we able to know different things? Because there's some obstruction, some obscuration somewhere. So I can't know what's on, you know, what's outside the house because the wall is obstructing my vision. Yeah, so the wall is an obstruction. I can't see that. Yeah, and then there's other things I can't see because, you know, my lack of understanding. You know, I just don't understand the things. And other things because of, you know, obscuration on the mind, like, you know, negative karma and so on. Yeah, or grasping a true existence. So there's always some kind of obscuration that prevents us from seeing things, okay? So the ignorance is the chief obscuration. We can eliminate that. Well, actually, the ignorance isn't really the chief one. For Buddhahood, it's the latencies of ignorance that are the chief one. But we start by eliminating the ignorance. Then the latencies are still there, but the wisdom realizing emptiness can remove those latencies too. So then when you've removed everything from the mind stream, yeah, then you just have the clarity and cognizance of the mind with nothing obstructing it. So, omniscience. Okay. But again, you're not going to have the gross mind at that point. Yeah, you're talking about very subtle mind. But it's in that one, that argument makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, makes some kind of sense to us. Okay, so, and then, okay, so we can,
Keep going.
okay.
Go back to your one from
Okay, so, you know, there, yeah, but so we can see some things we can know through our senses, they're evident phenomena. Some things are slightly hidden, we can develop our reasoning to know them. Some things are very obscure, are very hidden, and those things, there's a form of reasoning that they use. I don't think this reasoning is foolproof, personally, but it's a good, it gets us over part of the hump, okay? And that's the reasoning, you know, of authoritative testimony. Yeah, in this case, the Buddha's authoritative testimony in scriptures. And then there's, you know, to see if a scripture is valid or not, you have to see, does it contradict, in its description of evident phenomena, does it contradict anything? In its a description of slightly obscure phenomena, is it contradictory to what we know is true? Those two we can figure out. And then the third is, is it self-contradictory, or do different portions contradict each other? Okay. So that I don't think is totally foolproof reasoning. But then when you add to that it's spoken by the Buddha, and you have this whole thing that I was talking about before, why the Buddha is a reliable guide, and because of these different qualities that he's developed, then that gives a little bit more weight to it. Okay. But still, you know, in terms of Vasubandhu's description of the universe, it contradicts what we know, yeah, through science, through another kind of reliable cognition, and so we can refute, we don't have to believe that.
Apparently, but scripture isn't all cohesive within itself, as Holiness said.
Yeah, but in any case, it can be disproven. Yeah, the whole way it's set up, that the measurements where the hell realms are, where the sun and moon are supposed to be, and all of that. Nobody's, you know, where Mount Meru is supposed to be. All of that. Okay, and so, yeah, in addition to, you know, reasoning showing us that, you know, we can attain awakening, then, you know, to see also that the Buddha taught many methods for accumulating merit, that it isn't just one kind of thing to do, and that there's a lot of things to do, so we have a lot of creativity in how we can go about accumulating merit, and that as we accumulate merit and as we accumulate wisdom, then those two protect us from suffering, because that was one of the other things that made us discouraged and not want to engage, is our fear of suffering. Yeah, but as we understand emptiness deeper and deeper, that protects us from mental suffering, and as we collect more and more merit, that protects us from physical suffering. Now, why do you think that they're in, actually I should wait and ask that question, it comes up in a later verse, but I'll put it out there now, we can discuss it later. Why do you think that the collection of merit corresponds with alleviating physical suffering, and the collection of wisdom corresponds with alleviating mental suffering, and not vice versa? So just hold that in a question in your mind and see if you can think of reasons why they correspond that way. Okay. And then also, another reason not to get discouraged is because we can practice Tantra, which enables us to attain full awakening in a quicker way, because the methods to unify method and wisdom are yeah. Well, the whole description of, you know, involved in Tantra is really quite unique, and then how you develop method and wisdom is too. Okay, I think that's it for tonight, huh?
Can you go back to one thing that you kind of started but didn't finish, because
Oh,
you were saying, let me go back to this. Is your stopping point ignorance causing the afflictions? And then, but you had also mentioned, but didn't speak about, is your stopping point, the one you said that seemed most difficult, is that how the 12 links work?
no, I was saying what is a snagging point is how ignorance causes afflictions. And another one is, for some people, is how karma causes dukkha. Yeah, so that would relate to the 12 links, you know. Well, the first link, ignorance, how does the first link, what is ignorance and how does it cause karma? And then the second link, karma, how does that produce all the resultant branches, all the resultant links? Yeah, because some people say, karma? You know, it's just what you do. Why does that, you know, how is that going to determine what you're born as? What's the link? There's no link. Yeah. So as they say, wrong views are manifold. They abound. They're also limitless. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anybody online? Okay. Yeah.
One thing from Shantideva about discouragement is
About what?
about discouragement
Yeah.
for how long the path takes.
Yeah.
Is that if we don't do something, then we're just going to be in suffering endlessly.
Right.
It's going to take longer to just keep suffering, a longer period than it would take for liberation.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't try, then yeah, you're just extending your stay in samsara. And who wants to do that? But then, you know, for some people, you start saying you're in samsara, people have no clue. What do you mean samsara? Yeah. What is samsara? I don't understand what you're talking about. Yeah, life is good. Okay, there's some problems. But, you know, God created this for a reason.
He just hasn't told me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
You said one other thing. When you were talking about the foulness of the body,
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about that in terms of, you were talking about like one entity and nominally distinct.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, well, yeah, the outside of the body is different from the inside of the body.
So the outside of the body is pure.
Like it appears that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it appears that way. Even the sweat and the pimples
The smell?
and the what do you, boils
We have to
and
wash the outside constantly.
yeah, and your thrombosis. You know, your arteries, bulging arteries. What do you call those? Is that thrombosis? Varicose veins or so. What's thrombosis? You got something stuck in them. Okay, so yeah, you know, your bad breath is. Yeah.
We're mentally able to distinguish them.
Take that skin off and set it on a tray and see how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Make sure the tray's over there.
Yeah. Okay.